I wanted to have a longer, like, supplemental lecture, but I did not get time to get it all put together. But there were some things I did want to talk about that we've talked about kind of on a tangent during the class. And I wanted to talk about just a couple things a little bit more. On the first thing, related to the idea of how I work and not letting the subpar students take up a lot of my time, there's this idea called empathy fatigue. And you guys should know it because a lot of you are psych majors and you might become counselors, you might become clinicians. And so you have to be mindful of where your time goes, where you're going to invest your cognitive resources, where your empathy is going. So if every person that's out there that's not reaching their full potential and you're going to go out and try to help every single one of them, it's not going to work. You're going to burn out. You have to save those resources, your empathy, your cognitive resources. You have to save those people for people that you can actually help. So like in my situation with a subpar student, I cannot care more about their grade than they do. If I do, and this is how I used to teach when I first started, I didn't really know better. I would have, 200-300 students, and I would be focused on every single student's grades, and that's just not how you can do it. You're going to burn out if you think like that. Like as a counselor, you can't care more about the client's behavior than the actual client does. And if you do, you're going to get what's called, empathy fatigue, and it could lead to burnout. So something definitely to think about in the future when you get into the workforce. Moving on, stress management. I definitely wish I could have talked about this some more. I need to have probably an entire hour lecture on it. Every other chapter we talk about exercise and nutrition and sleep and how important they are. The fourth component that's super important is stress management. Stress is actually a good thing. The stress mechanism is good. It helps you to get things done, but it can be basically misappropriated. For example, running from a lion, that is the right time to feel extreme stress. You should feel mortal fear running from a lion. That's the perfect example of using that stress mechanism. If you feel mortal fear when giving a presentation in front of the class, that's the wrong time. Those two things should not be comparable. But you have that stress mechanism and it needs to be used somewhere. So it's going to use it, since you're not running from lions anymore, it's going to use it on something like giving a presentation in front of the class. What's going on there is you got the parasympathetic and the sympathetic systems. I believe we talked about this in an earlier chapter. The parasympathetic is the calm down system, the rest and digest. The sympathetic system is the fight or flight system. And again, those systems are great when you're running from lions. We don't have any lions to run from, but we still have that stress response system. And so it's going to go off for something. Your mind basically might perceive missing something like a due date being the equivalent to running from lions. And obviously, intellectual level, that it's not. Kind of related to this, I notice a lot of students, they'll say that they have the most stressful lives ever. And from an objective standpoint, I'm not trying to demean or belittle your feelings, but from an objective standpoint, this is not going to be true. This again at an intellectual level that, it's going to be much more stressful to live in someplace like Syria or Iraq than it is going to be here. Or it's going to be much more stressful to live in the 1600s than it was going to be to live here, attending college at OSU. Also, in the middle of a little bit ago in the middle age chapter, we talked about the idea of overload stressors. And so the stress that you feel now, when you become a parent, that stress is like tenfold. There's so many more stressors, these overload stressors, and you have so many things coming at you from different angles. When you look back at this time, this is going to seem like the easy days as far as stress goes, because you're going to have so many stressors as you get into your late 20s, 30s, 40s maybe. Now, again, not to belittle those feelings that you have about it, because there are several reasons why you do feel that this is a really stressful time. One, for sure, is that adolescents do perceive stress differently. There's an over-exaggerated stress response that happens. This article here, the CNN article, I'll try to post it on when I post this video. This article discusses how it's a really stressful time right now with adolescents, young adults, and how the pandemic is going to change them. And so it's an interesting read if you want to look at it. In the middle of that article, it talks about how there's an academic article that it links to that discusses how teenagers are highly reactive to stress. So they actually feel stress more than when you get older. So something that really stresses you out maybe at 18, at 30, it's just going to be like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. because you have a different biology and you have a different psychology once you get past that adolescent, young adult stage. So that's one, they have an exaggerated stress response. Two, you don't have the experience. So when you feel stressed out by something, you learn how to deal with that stress through experience. And eventually, for most people, those feelings of stress, they're not as strong because you've learned whatever's troubling you when you were younger. It's just not the end of the world because you went through it and you survived and nothing super bad happened. Three, it's also related to a topic we talked about a while back called adolescent egocentrism. This idea that I am super important, and so the problems that I have are consequently are also super important. And then you just kind of grow out of that and you realize, well, maybe that wasn't quite as important as I thought it was. Fourth and final, and I think this is related to why some of you may feel a little bit more stressed nowadays, is the idea relating back to helicopter parents. So if parents absorb all the stress that a kid should be learning to deal with when they're a kid, when a kid goes to college and they no longer have that stress absorption system there anymore, it's going to feel a lot worse. Because again, and it kind of relates back to the experience. If you don't have the experience, it's going to feel a lot worse, that stress that you feel the first time. So yeah, I think helicopter parents are also a component of what's going on there. So it's not that it's a more stressful time. Again, it's the best time to be alive. It's that teenagers are highly reactive to stress and they have the perception that it's an incredibly stressful time. But again, there's no lions chasing you. There's no food shortages. Those are the things that, produce what should be perceived as a really extreme stressful time. Also, on stress management, kind of related to these things, I talked just about a few techniques just briefly. One, you can activate that parasympathetic system through several different breathing techniques. It does take some practice, though. So if you try to do some breathing techniques in the middle of a meltdown, it's not going to work. What you need to do is you need to practice at the breathing techniques. You get good at it, and then you can actually use those techniques when a problem comes up, a bad situation. Numerous breathing techniques out there. The one that I use that activates that parasympathetic system is that you make your exhales longer than your inhales. So you may breathe in for like 4 seconds and then breathe out for 8 seconds or an 8 count, or seconds either way. That tricks the body into thinking that it's time to do a rest and digest. Again, it activates this parasympathetic system, and it's actually a pretty cool trick when you think about it, the idea that you can affect your biology like that just through breathing techniques. There's a whole bunch of other ones that you could look at. Wim Hof, I think that one's super interesting, so you could look into those. There are also apps that you can use to help you kind of coordinate that, and so like Paced Breathing is the name of one app. And you can set it up for an inhale of 4 and an exhale of 8, and then you just sit there and breathe with it and kind of learn how to get into that groove and that pace. Related to that, on campus, when it is open, is the Reboot Center. It's in the Student Union, and it helps to get your breathing and your biology back to where it should be. And when you get your breathing and your biology and all these things get into sync, it's going to help you a lot psychologically. You'll feel better. I do want to stress this, though. Breathing techniques, going to the Reboot Center, these things take practice. So you can't just go there one time and be like, oh, well, they didn't fix me, I'm not going to go back. You have to go back and you have to actually kind of retrain your entire body on how to deal with stress. And if you do, you'll learn, if you do go quite a bit, you'll get some definite long-term benefits. So I definitely highly recommend the Reboot Center. There are things that you can do on your own that are the equivalent of what they do there, but it can help take out the mystery of it for you. All kinds of stress management techniques. You guys talked about it in one of the discussions. Mindfulness is also good. That breathing training is actually kind of a mindfulness training. You're focusing on one thing. It's when too many things are happening all at the same time that you get this divided attention. That's when things seem out of control. It's just everything's going so fast. But if you can spend time to just sit down and focus on one thing for just, 10, 15, 20 minutes, you can really turn the volume down on that stress once you've learned how to activate that mechanism. Lastly, and just briefly on exercise, we talked about so much, I don't want to belabor it anymore. It is great for stress management. It's also can be a form of mindfulness. Somebody was talking, a few people were talking in discussions about the idea of flow and runner's high, and that's a real thing, and that's something that can definitely turn that volume knob down on stress. Also, I didn't get to talk about this. The articles on exercise and depression. No, it shouldn't be prescribed for somebody that's in a deep, severe depression and they can't get out of bed. That wouldn't make any sense. But for mild symptoms of depression, it's great. It's just as effective as medications. It's just probably as effective as placebos. But I think more importantly, something we didn't really get to talk about directly anyways, we definitely talked about indirectly, is the idea that exercise can be preventative for depression. So if you are exercising a lot, that could help to prevent depression. The people that exercise regularly are less likely to be depressed. And so basically, you would rather try to prevent a disease than trying to treat it. Okay. I think that's all for this thing. If you have any questions, you can go to the discussions up until Friday anyways. I'll probably close those down after the test happens.